there is research that if you don't do the most important things very early in the morning, then they're more than likely not going to get done throughout your day. So in the morning, I like to put in the things that are most important. And we talked about this in the previous episode. There is no one in my life that is more important than myself. And I don't say that with like this ego that of, oh, I'm so important. I say that is because I am the engine that runs my ship. So if I don't take care of the engine, or if I don't gas up the engine, if I don't do the tune-ups, if I don't do what's necessary, it's just not going to work well. In today's last episode of the season, we're going to talk about how to create a routine that works for you. I'm going to share a few of the most important elements that you're going to need to prioritize if you want to achieve your health goals and create a healthier lifestyle for you and your family. Today's episode is brought to you by the Family Kickstart program. This is MOMables 30-day whole food program that is designed for families who want to eliminate processed foods and sugars from their family's diet without giving up on the foods that they love. You're going to find lots and lots of info and ideas right below the video and in the show notes if you are listening to this on a podcast. Today, I've got Paula here, who's been around these last 2 seasons. She is my right hand. She knows what my days are like. Paula and I work together. She pretty much throws stuff in my calendar, and I'm like, can we move this around? Can we do this? So when it comes to creating a daily routine, Paula is very much aware of what goes on in my life. So she's going to make sure I tell the truth and only the truth. I'm just kidding. Paula, welcome back.
Thanks. I think I do have kind of an inside look to your life. Those texts at 8 p.m. of like, fix this. We need to do such and such. I have an idea. All that craziness.
That's because you work at the most ungodly hours. When I'm about to go to bed, I'm like, I know she's going to work for 3 hours because you're sleeping when I wake up. So
exactly. You know. I make you work weird. I'm sorry. But I think I have this inside view, and it's helpful, and I would love for our listeners to just get a little sneak peek of what your daily routine looks like.
Yeah. So I know that there's a lot of videos out there for like starting a morning routine, and, you know, I do not start my day with a hot cup of water with lemon and cayenne or this wonderful tea or writing things down. Because that doesn't work for me. And I'm not making fun. I'm just laughing at the idea that I actually tried it and I was like, this is just not for me. But the key word is trying. And we talked a lot about that in the previous podcast on how it's just hard to get for example, in the previous podcast, in episode 4 of season 6, we talked about an exercise routine, right? We talked about how do we find the time. And it's not about finding time because you found 24 hours and I found 24 hours in my day because guess what? We all have 24 hours and we're all busy. Okay. The idea is to make the time, or how do we allocate our time, right? And then building a healthy daily routine just means is how do I arrange my time so that I can get the most out of my day, build in rest time, and also, you know, take care of the people around me, right? Paula, you're a mom. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I work full time. I'm not even going to go down the list of like you were just saying in the previous episode, you know, between working out or cookbooks and writing content, testing recipes. We have video days. You know, I'm training for a black belt in karate, like all these things. It's not about how busy we are, but it's where do we squeeze in the things that are important to us? And people I don't care about, people I don't know, they're just really not that important. So they don't make it into my time or my thoughts, because your thoughts can consume your time. So a daily routine my routine is going to be very different than your routine and what you're going to find that works. But if there are things that will help you, like that's what people talk about, like, successful people have a morning routine. If there are things that you find that help you get motivated to get your day started or set your day with the right attitude, the right feelings, or start your day more energized, then you're going to squeeze those in for like very early in the morning, right? So if you need to either meditate or do your devotionals or pray early in the morning, so that gets you grounded and at the right mindset for your day, then that's the place where you're going to put them in, right? First thing in the morning. There is research that if you don't do the most important things very early in the morning, then they're more than likely not going to get done throughout your day. So in the morning, I like to put in the things that are most important. And we talked about this in the previous episode. There is no one in my life that is more important than myself. And I don't say that with like this ego that of, oh, I'm so important. I say that is because I am the engine that runs my ship. So if I don't take care of the engine, or if I don't gas up the engine, if I don't do the tune-ups, if I don't do what's necessary, it's just not going to work well, right? If you know anything about airplanes, there's a saying that airplanes they age the longer they're on a tarmac, right? So like an engine, airplanes are not meant to just be parked at all. Their engines are meant to be run, and they have very tight, rigorous schedules of maintenance, and when they change the oil every so many hours, and every all these things. And not just like the engines, but like the lights and the little things that make an airplane fly, not only for our safety, but for the longevity of the plane. So I say we kind of operate the very same way. The engine is like us. We're the most important part of our lives. So how we take care of us is really determines the type of life that we create for ourselves, right? So that's why I say that you are the most important person in your life, because you take care of so many other people. Okay. And it's not just about eating healthy, although we have really talked about in this season a lot about how do we, eliminate processed foods and sugars? How do we eat healthy on a budget? How do we create healthy meals that our families will actually eat? And of course, I've given you guys all the tools. You'll have them in the show notes and below the video on YouTube, if that's what you're watching, to kind of check what those are. But the idea, and there's hundreds of free recipes on my YouTube channel just that you can have access to, and thousands on my blogs, because there are different things, different tastes and preferences for different people, just like different routines are going to be different. But the one thing that all routines have in common is to make yourself a priority, put yourself first. So therefore, start your day with some of the elements that are most important, right? For me, it's coffee, but hey, so that is what I wanted people to kind of like think about is there's the morning routine element, which is why there's so many videos and posts about the morning routine. But a morning routine is just going to look like, the first few hours, whether it's before your family wakes up, or, if you're single and you're listening for a podcast for mostly about being a mom, you're so awesome. But really it's about making time for the things that are important. For me, a few times a week, the very first thing that I do is, we talked about exercise in the previous episode, is exercising, because I am busy during the day, and I found it that it's very difficult now that I work full time and I do other things to make the time in the middle of my day to exercise. So this morning was a perfect example. I have a running partner, and last night I said, hey, tomorrow it's going to be like 29 degrees, like, oh, and do we want to go running in the morning? And it's dark, and I can go down the list, okay? But I knew that if I didn't run before, early in the morning before everybody woke up, that I would have to not only come to work dressed in running clothes or have my running clothes with me, but I'm not sure that I could have committed an hour in the middle of the day when it's much nicer weather and beautiful outside. Yes, but I don't know that I would have allocated that time. So this morning when I woke up and it was super dark and it was cold, I texted my running partner. I was like, hey, I'm getting out of bed now. So I have an accountability partner, but that's also really important. I guess I should have talked about the other, that in the other podcast, but I went early in the morning because I just knew, and we all know that if we save it for later, it's probably not going to happen. So my morning routine is move or get moving a few times a week, early in the morning. And then when I get back is right when my kids are waking up I gotta wake them up. And so I'll have coffee, I'll make lunches, I'll make breakfast, I go shower, my husband helps getting them ready, and then we go out the door. So basically everything happened, like I say everything, but everything that's important, my kids are fed for most of their day, lunch and breakfast, they got everything they need, whether it's, all the mom things are done in the morning before they leave to go to school, including my own, my exercise. So, and drinking a lot of coffee. So that's the things I do in the morning. It certainly looks very different at different mornings, and it may look very different for you. And then the rest of the day is where I find the things that you, Paula, throw in my way, or there's deadlines, so then I have to kind of schedule chunks of time. If I'm gonna batch a few podcasts, that's why I'm wearing the exact same thing you saw me wear in the previous podcast videos, because we're batching our time. We're trying to be more effective with our time. So so we'll block a set of time and we'll go like, okay, today we're going to do this. And that's why I knew that, we got to be finished by a certain time before I go to another appointment. So, prioritizing my morning is really important. And then the rest of the day is more about what do I need to get done today? What are the things that will take me to achieve my goals? When I get home, from work and picking up my kids and activities, it's about like when I make dinner I'm making tonight's dinner, but what can I prep today that's going to help me eat healthier tomorrow? So oftentimes at dinner, I'll prep some breakfast items, and we have videos on make ahead breakfast here on this channel. We have tons of school lunch ideas that can be made ahead of time. And our MOMables meal plans, like I print out a meal prep sheet. So on Monday, you know exactly what you can do while you're making Monday's recipe. That can get you ahead on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, while you're cooking up what you halfway prepped on Monday, you can prep for the next day, right? So those are the things that I do the rest of the day. So there's the morning and then there's the full day.
So what should people look for in their own daily routines? Like you said, everyone's going to be different, but are there things that we can kind of measure to see if we're forming healthy habits or if some adjustments need to be made?
Yeah. So when we talked about what we're going to talk about in this podcast, it's funny that I was like, what are the key takeaways of building a routine? And there are 4 things that I really schedule my time around. The first one is sleep. So and I say the first because sleep is the most important the most important thing I do for myself and for my family and for my life is sleep. And I'm not talking about 10 or 12 hours a day, I wish, but I'm talking about getting adequate sleep so that I don't operate at a zombie level, right? Like and again, if you just had a baby, or, I've had 3 kids, and the first couple of months and years are just kind of like blurry still, because you're just in survival mode. Okay. But if you're baby and child is sleeping through the night, more than 6 hours, then it's time for you to kind of look and assess like your sleep. So sleep is the most important part. Then movement or exercise, which I just kind of described of why I get it done in the morning, but movement or exercise, and we have an entire podcast on that. Food, then food is the other element that I build into my daily routine. And then stress reduction. So, a lot of people is like being mindfulness or self-care. We're going to talk about some of the elements individually in a second, but basically it's sleep, movement, food, and stress reduction. And then our family and the things that our life stuff, that's not a routine. That is life. Okay. But and life happens and life gets scheduled throughout our day, those are commitments, that's how we allocate our time. But if you ask, what are the 4 things that I really need to be serious with? That's sleep, movement, food, and stress reduction.
So if we're listening to you talk about these key elements and we're going, oh gosh, I'm missing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of those things, what are those small steps that we can take towards working on a healthier lifestyle?
And I want to go one at a time, but if you're like, I don't sleep enough, or I'm stressed out all the time, or like, I sleep on the weekends, or okay, just so you know that not every day has to be perfect. Okay. A routine just means like building out a success map for yourself, for your life, right? So we want to, when we talk about building or creating a healthy daily routine, that just means like, what are the things that I need to do or think about on a daily basis so that I can live a happy, healthier life, both for myself and for my family. So sleep, movement, food, and stress reduction. So sleep. So if you're like, I think I get enough sleep, or most parents are like, will tell you how horrible they slept for the first few years. And then one day it was like the C parted. You're like, wow, I slept through the night. I can't believe it. But then that doesn't happen because, your kid gets sick or you're under a deadline or whatever it is. So, but most people are, if you ask anyone, they're like, yeah, I think I get enough sleep, or, and then there's the other group of people that are like, I only need 4 hours of sleep, or I only need 5 hours. And it's like this badge of honor. And my husband used to be like that. And I don't know if he listens to these podcasts, but he used to just like totally say like, I only need 5 hours of sleep. And I'm like, well, I need 8. 7, I'm operational and happy. 8, it really is like optimal. 9 is just like too much. And it used to make fun of me. But like now, we started, number 1, tracking our sleep. So we have apps on our phones and we started tracking our sleep. And then we realized, how much less sleep we were actually getting than we thought we did. Okay. So time in bed is not the same thing as actually being asleep. So, if you get in bed at 10 o'clock, but you're kind of like still tossing and turning by 11:45, or it takes you 45 minutes to fall asleep, and then you set your alarm for say 6 o'clock, but you really don't get out of bed until 6:30, you are just like stealing an hour and 15 minutes that you could be sleeping, or an hour and 15 minutes that you could allocate time differently, right? Like exercising, right? So time in bed is different than time asleep. And so you don't know that unless you start tracking your sleep. And I know you're going to ask, so I should have like looked, but I use Sleep Cycle app. I'm not being endorsed for them, but like I've been using Sleep Cycle for probably, I think 5 or 6 years. And so 5 years since my oldest thing is 2014. And so I can see trends, and the app has improved a lot, but I can see like on average, I get 7 hours and 43 minutes, or last week I got less. If I'm traveling, maybe more. And then I can say like, this day I worked out and this day I didn't, or I'm traveling. So you can kind of see like, do you sleep better when you work out, or do you not sleep better? Or so number one is sleep. You need to track it. You need to be able to assess it and be honest with yourself. How do I feel after just 5 hours of sleep? And can you get by on 5 hours of sleep? Yes, you can. But are you drinking cups of coffee a day? And not because you love coffee. But I mean, you probably, if you drink coffee, you probably love it. But because you need it? Or are you making unhealthy food choices like snacking or chocolate or sugary things because you need energy, right? Like you get these cravings when you're, there are often hormonal cravings, and not because you're on your period, but because your body didn't have enough sleep to fully recover and balance all of its hormones. Like one of the most important reasons of sleep is that that's the time your body uses to get all your hormones in check and do its thing. So if you are stealing time from that you need to be sleeping by the hour, like 3 or 4 hours a night, it will catch up, right? Whether it's hormonally or in other health related issues. So that's why sleep is number one. So track it, assess it, and then fix it. It's hard to say, like, it's really hard to go from 5 hours to 8 or whatever. Well, make a commitment to just adding 30 minutes, right? Like in the last episode, I talked about how I became a morning person just like 3 or 4 years ago, and I still don't like it. But I realized that if I went to bed earlier with my kids, then I could get up earlier, right? So I started just going, like, I used to go to bed at 10:45 or 11 p.m. I started going to bed at 10:30. And then I just I got used to going to bed at 10:30. And then I would just try going to bed at 10 o'clock, right? A lot of times what's great about a sleep app is that you can say, tomorrow I have to be up at 5 a.m. So if I want to get 7 hours, then you can kind of track it backwards and go, I've got to be in bed by 10 o'clock, right? So tracking is super important. And now with technology, there's so many like gadgets and apps, but like I just use my phone. I already have one, and it's nothing I have to pay for. So there's that. Movement and exercise is a second pillar. Now we talked entire podcast about this, but it's definitely something that you can just get started and add movement little by little, right? So you don't have to go all out. That's why the best example I gave my friend the other day is I've never run in my life, and so I didn't and if I want to do half a marathon or a full marathon, like I'm not just going to go out and run a marathon. I'm going to start with going out and running for 3 minutes, 1 minute walking, 1 minute running, 1 minute walking. And then I'm going to get like the side stitches because like I'm just not conditioned. And then the thing is like the next day I'll do it again. Right? 1 minute walking, 1 minute running, or 2 minutes walking and 1 minute running. But little by little, or walk the dog. It's about adding exercise. And that's why I do it in the morning, but you can do it when it best suits you. We talked about in the previous episode that when my kids were little, I would go to the gym a few times a week with them because they had childcare. So that was a time at the time that it was in that child decline when they were getting kind of cranky. Like I knew there was like a 2-hour window before nap time. So I would go work out, let somebody else take care of my kid while they played with other kids. And I would take a shower and then go home, feed, it was like lunchtime and nap. And then I had, oh my gosh, I didn't use nap time. A lot of moms are like, but I can't use nap time to exercise because I got to clean the house and do laundry and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, don't do that. Like find a time either before your child wakes up, while your spouse is home, or find a place that offers some type of childcare. Or if you just don't have either, find a friend where you're like, I'll take Tuesday, Thursdays. I'll take your child, and you'll do mine Monday, Wednesdays, right? And then maybe on Fridays or over the weekend, you can do activities together. That's about doing something with our kids. And we talked about this in the previous episode, lots of ideas. But however you do it, movement or exercise, add it into your lifestyle little by little when you know you're going to get it done and when it's most convenient, not for somebody else, but when it's most convenient for you. So that's number 2. The other element into building a healthy daily routine is food. If you don't sleep enough, you're gonna make. If you don't sleep, and you don't move, you're just gonna not make smart choices, right? Like we've all found ourselves, craving something like sugary or high carb or whatever it is, like that you just know, like you feel guilt afterwards, right? Like no one feels guilty after eating an apple, right? Maybe you feel guilty if you eat like 3 pounds of grapes, but or if you eat half a jar of peanut butter with the apple. But the point is that no one feels guilty by making a good dietary choice. So, and that's why the other 2 elements I prioritize, because I know that if I sleep enough and I move, then I'm going to support my physical habit with my dietary choices, right? So, because I don't want to work out really hard and go like, that just went down the window. So, because then it's not positive reinforcement every single time. Okay. I'm not talking about treats. I'm talking about like on the daily. So, food, if you just can't stick with anything, you're going to have to just start by making a plan. And we have a podcast on making plans. There are YouTube videos on how to make a meal plan for your family. You can go to MOMables.com and check out the meal plans. The family Kickstart program is a meal plan for 30 days, eliminating processed foods and sugars. And I say like either make a plan or buy a plan, because then it's easier to prep and execute. So without a plan, you're kind of left to your own devices. And if you didn't sleep enough and you didn't move, left to our own devices, we're probably not going to make the best choices. And there are other things that are going to look way more appealing because they're convenient. So when you have a plan, you know what to buy for the week. And you, if you're using the MOMables meal plans or family Kickstart program, the prep is built in so that when you're making dinner today, you know how you can get ahead of the game for tomorrow. But otherwise, if you plan it out for yourself, go like, if I'm grilling chicken tonight, or this recipe that I want to make for my family has chicken, what can I make 2 nights from now or tomorrow that I can incorporate that? Or maybe it's taking that chicken and using it in a lunch or in a salad, or packing your office lunches so that you don't have to go spend money on fast food or convenient foods. And maybe you could use that lunch hour that you normally would go out a few times a week to walk a few times a week. So again, it's really about reallocating your time and priorities. So with food, you have to make a plan, you have to prep, and then you just execute. So there are a lot of resources on our site to help you with that, and recipes on this channel. So I'm not going to beat that to a dead horse, but like really, it comes down to the choices that you make with the things that you have in front of you. And we even had an entire podcast. I think it's like podcast number 2, Paula, where we talk about like eating healthy on a budget.
Yes.
So a lot of people think of that eating healthy is more expensive. Eating organic is often more expensive, but healthy is not just organic. Healthy is fresh food that you have to cook and prep and then you enjoy. So, and then the last one, which tends to go out the window for most people, is reducing stress. We talk about self-care, and if you're on social media, you always see like hashtag self-care, and there's someone like giving themselves a facial or going to get a manicure, or it's like making an event out of taking care of yourself. When the reality is that I told you just like 10 minutes ago that I used to go to the gym for the sheer fact that with the childcare, I paid I think it was like an extra $30 a month, but the sheer fact that I could take a shower uninterrupted. I would take sometimes I would just stand there and let the water just That's self-care, you guys. Self-care to take a long hot shower when you've got babies. And if you're listening or watching, you know what I'm talking about, right, Paula? Like, I mean, you don't always have the luxury of somebody else watching your kid while you shower at home. Like, I can't tell you how many times my kid would be screaming, like, just because they were tired or they wanted something or they wanted me to get out of the shower. While I was trying to take a shower, that was like the most rushed, season of my life. Like, so I started take that. To me, a hot shower when you're a new mom, that's self-care. Okay. It's not just about like manicures. I don't even have like nail polish on my hands. Like that's just not part of my self-care routine. My self-care for stress reduction, sometimes it's taking a walk with my husband and the dog, so I can vent or talk to somebody about adult problems and things that are going on that I don't necessarily want to do in front of my kids. So that's also part of stress reduction. Going to therapist, that's also part of stress reduction, right? Because you're no longer carrying the burden of everything yourself. You're sort of sharing the journey with someone. So that's also part of stress reduction. Recently, I started taking baths at night. So when I go get my kids, it's like lights out bedtime. So I go tuck them in or like walk around and do like the mom checks, that everyone's in bed and all that stuff. I'll start the bath and then I'll go do that. And then when I get back, I've had a couple overfills almost, but the point is that I'll fill the tub while I go get the kids in bed. And then I just take a 10-minute soak. Sometimes it's 15. I've fallen asleep a couple of times in there. But that's just what I need to do, and I'm not talking like bubble baths and candles. Okay. I'm talking about just like hot water and the door closed. But that's part of like self-care and stress reduction at the end of the night, in order to be able to fall asleep. I try to not be on electronics or social media late at night so that my mind doesn't think about work or the things that I need to do. So I try to make the last hour of my day more about my needs and not the things that need to get done. So sometimes it's like I'll put some music on headphones and I'll fold that last load of laundry, because it's like, like the towels that no one wants to fold or socks no one wants to match. Like that's just like monotonous work, but I'm listening to something and my mind isn't thinking. So that to me is stress reduction. So like I'm just folding stuff or, I'm finding ways to get the things that I need to do done, but also if you have a stressful job, maybe turn off your brain a little, maybe it's read a book before bed. But so for me, building a healthy daily routine starts with sleep and then moving and then the food that I eat and then stress reduction before I start that cycle again. And in between, I'm going to schedule, kid pickups and drop-offs and deadlines and all the things that fill our life, right? But there are 4 elements that I want you to really think about to build a healthy daily routine for yourself, especially if you're a mom. It's not about having the perfect morning routine. It's about building, putting importance on things like sleep, moving, food, and stress reduction. And I know that I'm going to link a ton of these resources for you below the video and in the show notes. So I hope that this was helpful. And I know you're shaking your head, Paula, because I know you just like you do me, and you need to incorporate some of these things. And I need to do better as well. It's not about having the perfect day. Some days are better than others, but at the end of the day is if we have the tools that we need, we can then make those little changes that, that lead to the lifestyle that we want to have.